Good evening and welcome to SnapShot. Tonight we examine the fallout from Australia's recognition of Palestinian statehood.
Today I can confirm that at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September, Australia will recognise the state of Palestine. Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own, predicated on the commitments Australia has received from the Palestinian Authority. We will work with the international community to make this right a reality. A two-state solution is humanity's best hope to break the cycle of violence in the Middle East and to bring an end to the conflict, suffering and starvation in Gaza.
The change reverses Australia's long-standing bipartisan position that a Palestinian state should only be recognised as part of a final peace process. It follows recent announcements by major Western nations to recognise Palestine. Currently, 147 countries recognise Palestine, with Australia joining recent additions, the UK, France and Canada. Western recognition of Palestine comes as international pressure mounts on Israel to allow more aid into Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has approved military plans to take control of large parts of Gaza.
We've always said that Palestinian civilians cannot be made to pay the price of defeating Hamas. But a whole population has been shattered. So this September, the international community has the chance to forge hope from despair as the world seizes the opportunities that are presented by the new commitments of the Palestinian Authority, and as the world seeks to support the Arab League's efforts to isolate Hamas. Across the world, nations have agreed that we cannot keep doing the same thing and hoping for a different outcome. We can't keep waiting for the end of a peace process that has ground to a halt. So last April, our government started a conversation with the Australian people about changing Australia's approach. We made clear we would recognise Palestine when it would best contribute momentum to peace. September is that time. When the world says this has gone on far too long. When the world says the heartbreak, death and destruction must end. We will continue to provide humanitarian aid with our partners to try and help vulnerable civilians to get basic supplies they need, and we will work with partners to build a pathway out of the cycle of violence to a peace that is enduring and is just, with recognition of each other's right to exist, recognition by the countries of the region, two states, Israel and Palestine.
Official recognition by Australia follows months of street protests in our major cities, with 90,000 people marching across a rain-soaked Sydney Harbour Bridge, including prominent former Albanese government minister Ed Husic and former New South Wales Premier and Foreign Minister Bob Carr, as well as Julian Assange. The historic move comes years after Labor first adopted Palestinian recognition in its national platform in 2018, with over 80 branches passing motions urging a recognition of Palestine and condemning Israel. The Liberal opposition has pledged to reverse Australia's recognition of Palestine. A joint statement by Liberal leader Susan Ley and her shadow Foreign Minister Michaela Cash said recognising a Palestinian state prior to a return of the hostages and defeat of Hamas, as the government has today, risks delivering Hamas one of its strategic objectives of the horrific October 7 terrorism. Jewish groups in Australia have strongly condemned the decision to recognise a Palestinian state. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry called it a betrayal and abandonment of the Israeli hostages who continue to languish in appalling conditions in Gaza. The Zionist Federation of Australia has said that it will embolden Hamas, further jeopardise the lives of Israeli hostages, prolong the war and humanitarian crisis in Gaza and place more strain on the long-standing alliance between Australia and Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel's greatest ally, the United States, has criticized Western countries' move to recognize Palestine. President Donald Trump has claimed it rewards Hamas. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said that it has led to Hamas withdrawing from ceasefire negotiations with Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu called Australia's imminent recognition of Palestine shameful, saying of Australia, they know what they would do if right next to Melbourne or right next to Sydney you had this horrific attack. I think you would do at least what we're doing, probably, maybe not as efficiently and precisely as we're doing it. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz posted on X, urging Australians to wake up to the implications, calling it a betrayal that empowers extremists. Pro-Zionist News Corp Australia, on its daily tabloid front pages, echoed the condemnation from Jewish groups with the headline, "A win for Hamas." Seven Wests, the nightly online newspaper, had as its headline, "The Hamas Western Alliance." Headlines like this are made easier with Hamas itself praising Australia's decision. Although Palestinian recognition is a cause Albanese has been associated with since his student activist days, there are also domestic political motivations. Two Albanese cabinet ministers, Tony Burke and Jason Clare, were challenged in their Western Sydney seats at this year's federal election by pro-Palestine Muslim independents. A recent poll by Demos AU found that 45% of Australians polled supported recognising a Palestinian state, 23% were opposed, and 32% were not sure. In his second term, Albanese has asserted a more independent foreign policy, unafraid to be at odds with the United States under the Trump administration. The full impact of this decision will unfold in the coming months. Will it deter Israel from a full occupation of Gaza? Will it result in Israel permitting more foreign aid into Gaza? Will it pressure Israel into accepting a ceasefire? Stay with us as we cover this latest flashpoint in the Israel-Palestine conflict. I'm Tim Wilms, and that's Snapshot. Good night.